Hello and welcome to DotLife, the new podcast bringing you hyper-local content from Boston's Dorchester neighborhood. I'm here today with Bill Forry, who is the executive editor and co-publisher of the Dorchester Reporter, which is the premier news source for Dorchester and the surrounding neighborhood. Bill, great to have you.
Hey, Erin, great to have you in our offices here. Thanks for coming in and bringing all of your equipment. This is quite the setup.
Yeah, absolutely. We are really excited to have this partnership with you because you are the source of news in Dorchester. So being able to talk to you, not only having read the headlines for each weekly edition of the paper, but also getting to get a little bit more behind the scenes with you and your writers is really cool. So thanks for being a part of this.
Thanks for doing it. It's a great idea. A long time coming. I know we've talked about this for months and months, and here we are. Congratulations on getting this off the ground, and we're privileged and honored to be on the first episode. So, and, you know, we make it our business to know the news of the neighborhoods. That's what we've been doing for 43 years. And, you know, we don't know everything, but we try. That's what we're trying to do. And we're trying to convey news about that people need for their daily lives here, Dorchester, Mattapan, and the surrounding neighborhoods. We've seen a lot of growth in the recent years into Southie and Jamaica Plain, Roxbury, Rosendale. So to all our listeners across the city of Boston, welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can always pick up a copy of the paper on newsstands or subscribe on .news.com.
You can, and actually you can read all of our content online for free. We don't put a turnstile on the news. We believe that the neighborhoods of the city are best served by everyone having access to the same information. So our business model has been criticized at times for that, but it works. We've been here for 43 years and we intend to be around. And this is a new platform that we're very excited about because I think, Erin, you and your vision here is to really bring in a whole new group of listeners and consumers of news and information, and also to have some fun. The culture of this part of the city is so vibrant and dynamic and increasingly so, and bringing a voice and a lens to that is a great idea. So congrats. I
appreciate that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the Dorchester Reporter and the roots of that publication in the next segment. So for now, why don't we dive into this week's headlines?
Sure.
So one of the first things in the paper that I read this week was about Fieldhouse Plus. Is that how it's referred?
Yes, the Fieldhouse Plus. It's right down the street from our offices here. This is an amazing partnership between the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester, which to me is probably the most important institution at the community level that we've ever had, and it's still growing. It's an amazing institution. The Martin Richard Foundation, which, I mean, what else needs to be said? I mean, just the Richard family and their vision for keeping Martin's legacy alive. This is like not just a monument to Martin, but just a living, breathing example of what he, you know, represents and his family lives every day. And the city of Boston, because this facility, it's a $70 million indoor sports and recreation facility that will be operated by the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester through a lease agreement with the city of Boston. This is land right next to the McCormick Dever School Complex, right across the street from the entrance of the Harbor Point community. And it's on Mount Vernon Street, you know, here on Columbia Point. There's never been a facility like this built in the city of Boston. This is going to be mainly used by BPS kids during the day from the neighboring schools because this is part of their campus, right? It's also going to be used by thousands of Dorchester, principally Dorchester, but also surrounding neighborhoods, kids and teens who have traditionally been, you know, especially in the winter months, blocked out of a lot of activities. There's such a limit to what we have in the city of Boston for, you know, sports and training that's in an indoor environment. This is really going to be a game changer. And the visionaries behind this project are Bill Richard of the Martin Richard Foundation and Bob Scannell of the Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester, two absolute gems in our community. And their teams who have brought this to life with Road A Architects, by the way, which is another Dorchester company and institution that's special. And what we've learned just today, Erin, the Fieldhouse groundbreaking just took place.
Yep.
You're going to hear more from my wife, Linda Dorcena Forry, probably about this in a few minutes. Governor Healy was here to announce a new tranche of $12 million in state funding, which is really going to get this facility much closer to its goal of $70 million. I think it's at now 55. So there's still some outstanding financing that's needed, but in true fashion of kind of gumption and passion for this project, the project's going in the ground this week. Like literally shovels are breaking, and the earth movers are coming in, and this building will be online probably in about 2 years.
Okay.
So it's a really exciting project. The Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester have 3 campuses. They're in Savin Hill, principally at Dorchester Ave. There's a main clubhouse on Deer Street, and there's the Denny Center that's on Mount Vernon Street. This will be a 4th facility and the biggest and the best of the group. I think what you'll see from this is just creating a new common ground for people across the city. I think kids from Mattapan, Roxbury, Southie, the surrounding communities are going to be using this facility constantly. Sports teams will be able to train here in the winter. They'll be able to rent it out for some revenue as well. But the vast majority of the time and the programming is going to be for our kids, city kids who never have had this opportunity before in their own city at this level. So it's very exciting.
And we're talking 75,000 square feet dedicated to youth programming. And I think when you combine that with the White Stadium project, which I know has its detractors, but it's really meant to help BPS students have more athletic facilities. I think we're really seeing a big investment from the city in youth, which is great to see.
Yeah, the Wu administration, and you're right, there are detractors. There are still people who feel strongly that this is too big of an investment at White Stadium. It's the city's side investment is north of $90 million at this point. But I'm one of the people who give the mayor a lot of credit for staking that position out and following through with it. And obviously the court battle that just really ended 2 weeks ago sort of vindicated her position. But it's still kind of a leap of faith to say, hey, this is a public-private partnership with a soccer team that's not even in existence yet or just coming into existence. But that part of the city in particular, Franklin Park, White Stadium, has been so underinvested in for decades. And I'm one of the people who says good for Mayor Wu for staking, putting a lot of political capital into a part of the city that a lot of people have just sort of shied away from.
Yeah.
They've talked the game but never really delivered there. So, we'll see how it plays out. But that facility is now well into demolition, and they're on a tight timeline. The Fieldhouse is also on a tight timeline, but doesn't come with a lot of the attendant political pressures. This is a project that everybody wants to be behind, and there's still opportunities if there's donors out there looking for an opportunity. Somebody just made an anonymous donation, and to name the outdoor deck of the Fieldhouse for a wonderful woman named Quinette Santos. We call her Queenie. She's been part of the Boys and Girls Club team for 4 decades.
Okay.
And she's a Harbor Point person who runs the Denny Center, and that part of that facility will now be named for her, thanks to an anonymous donor who was just announced today. So there's a lot of momentum for this project, and it's still building.
Oh, that's great. I want to pivot. You mentioned White Stadium. The next story that we wanted to talk about was the budget announcement from Mayor Wu, which does include, obviously, funds set aside, quite a lot of funds set aside for both White Stadium and Franklin Park improvements in general. But in addition to that, we've got some Dorchester-specific projects. So a Grove Hall Community Center, the Fields Corner Library project, in addition to, of course, citywide initiatives like trash collection, road and control, public housing, schools, funding increases. What was your reaction to the budget?
Well, it's an austerity budget. I mean, we knew that they had telegraphed, both the mayor and the councilors, like Councilor Brian Worrell, City Council President Ruth C. Louis-Jouen, and the mayor, of course. We knew this was coming. I mean, it's I think a fiscally prudent budget, and that's exactly what's called for in this unpredictable environment, especially at the federal level. But it's also a function of what is an obvious decline in the commercial tax base, and there has been a pretty robust debate about the extent of that. This budget, I think, is a pretty clear-eyed recognition that this lean times, this belt tightening necessary. The projects you mentioned in Dorchester, the Grove Hall Community Center, the Fields Corner Library, which there's going to be a groundbreaking for that coming up in May. These are projects that we knew. We were in the capital budget for like the last several years, going back even into the Walsh administration. So there's not a lot of new spending, for projects, and that's probably the right move. White Stadium obviously is a massive spend, and part of that is a BPS expenditure, I believe. So there's a lot on the line. The other thing the city is putting a lot of effort into is seeking state funding for projects like Madison Park, for a new facility here on Harbor Point, on Columbia Point, the Ruth Batson Academy, and a new school also on the Mattapan-Dorchester line, which is the former Shaw-Taylor schools, which they're seeking and have actually been signaled that they will get state funding for. So Boston's not alone in this, but it feels a little bit lonely right now from the Fed side.
Well, that was mentioned in the article as well, that Mayor Wu is very conscious of the potential disappearance of federal funding. So we can't really rely as much as maybe we have in the past on federal funds.
And projects that people are really excited about along the coastal side of Dorchester, Tinian Beach, Moakley Park, those are already potentially casualties because it was just announced this week some of the federal funding is being clawed back that was promised on those projects. This is going to be an evolving and probably unfortunately for Boston a bit of a bleak period here from what we would normally see as a partner in government being really hostile to Boston's interests. So Mayor Wu obviously has staked that position out very clearly. Yep. I think the council is 100% behind her on that. And I think the voters of Boston probably are too.
Yeah. Let's stick with some more capital projects. We'll shift over to the MBTA. So,
redliners. I'm sure you're having a great month.
I think the redliners are very conscious of the work that's being done on the MBTA right now. I personally live near Ashmont Station. I'm about a 4-minute walk from there, and I can hear all night long the heavy machinery operating, fixing the tracks. I can't imagine what it's like to be even closer. You had a chance to talk to Phil Eng this week. So
I did. Philip Eng, the general manager of the MBTA. This is the latest in a series of surges, as they call them, to shut down the T for extended periods of time. In this case, it was 8 days of total shutdown on the Ashmont branch, so they could stop running trains and really, tear up track and fix old tracks, signals, and we're going to see more of that too. We've already had a couple of rounds of surge. This month, there continues to be somewhat of an interruption in service as the T runs what they call shuttle trains. So they're kind of on one track and they just go back and forth, right, between JFK and Ashmont. It adds another 20 minutes average to people's commutes. And it's not ideal, but the T's rationale for this is that in the long run, this is going to make all this deferred maintenance, clearing it up, stuff that's decades in the waiting queue, to just get it done. Philip Eng probably has among the highest popularity rating of any public official in the state because people, I think, by and large, do see this as necessary. There are faster times when we're not in surge mode. Yep. The commutes have improved. We've heard that anecdotally from friends and folks who work here. But when you're in the middle of it, it's not a lot of fun. The good news for now is that the buses are off the avenue, the shuttle buses. And there will be, from what we're told, one more day of bus service coming in at the end of April to finalize one big piece of this Ashmont branch work, which is called the Diamond. It's there by Ashmont Station. It allows trains to cross over and turn around without a lot of trouble. So that's still to come at the end of this month. But we're at April 17th, and I think we're still midstream, so the verdict's still out on this particular surge and how effective it's been.
I do think the MBTA and particularly Mr. Eng have gained a lot of goodwill over the past year or so with the improvements they've made and the efficiencies that we've seen. Do you think it's still reasonable to call him Train Daddy, or do you do you think that magic has worn off?
I don't personally call him Train Daddy, not to his face for sure. I've had the chance to meet Phil Eng a couple of times. He's one of the more accessible and down to earth T executives that we've had, and he seems to really be plugged into this work. I'll give him credit, and a lot of the team around him. There's some good people from our own neighborhood, people like Deirdre Habashar and Gabrielle Farrell, people who are from Dorchester, Mattapan, who are in his ear all the time, and Joe Pesatoro, who's been at the T for ages, who relates to us on the media side. I think there's a lot of pride at the T right now for the work that they're able to do. They've taken their lumps, God knows, over the years. And, now is a moment where I think, they all feel like they're rowing in the right direction.
That's got to be good for morale as well.
I think it is.
Internally. Let's go a little on the lighter side. There was a great story in the Reporter this week about LaMercy Fraser, who is a local artist. She creates a lot of artwork representing marginalized communities. She's been a resident here for about 20 years.
Yeah.
She has had work in the Smithsonian, in the White House, the American Museum of Design, the New England Foundation for the Arts. She was recognized this week. Tell us a little bit more about her.
Well, very impressive. And I didn't know about her until, sometimes you never know what you're, sometimes it's good to read your own paper. And she's one of the people that popped out at me. Cassidy McNeely wrote about her this week in the Reporter. She just won a $75,000 grant from a foundation that is just gearing up to assist local artists. And, she's in the visual arts, as you mentioned. She does a lot with obviously, paint, but also canvas and stitch work. So she's going to be having an exhibit coming up, and I'll have to look at our own article here to just cite it. But she has something coming up here in the next May 22nd, and she's exhibiting during the Boston Public Art Triennial. It starts May 22nd. People can read more about this obviously online at dotnews.com. But man, we have such a wealth of artistic talent here. Every week in the Reporter, we try to highlight somebody whether it's visual or music. We also have some pretty marquee actors and actresses coming out of our community these days, and I think that's one of the other stories you wanted to talk about.
Are you a Bear fan?
I am a Bear fan, although I'm not completely caught up on the latest season, I have to admit. But man, I was so impressed. Io as Edibiri, I think is how we pronounce her last name, and.
Dorchester native.
Yep. I think she grew up on Jones Hill, if I'm not mistaken, in the Upham's Corner neighborhood, and went to Boston Latin School, and just came back to BLS this past week with Mayor Wu for an opportunity to meet the students, go see some old teachers, and I guess take a victory lap. I mean, she did
win an Emmy, I believe.
I think she won a Golden Globe and then an Emmy, and I mean, she's probably going to end up sweeping all the awards over her career. Yeah. She's only 29 years old.
Wow.
And such a great representative of our neighborhood, of our city now. She had some fun at BLS, seeing the current crop of kids and seeing old, teachers. So, she's a terrific ambassador for Dorchester, really.
We watched the final season thinking it was the final season. We got to the second to last episode and we're like, this can't be ending like this. And I realized there's more to come. So I don't know when it comes back, but The Bear is definitely worth watching.
It's on my list. No spoilers today, Erin, please.
Let's shift to something, I think you have, Matt, and this is the Grealish Boxing Club story that's in the Reporter. Tell us a little bit more about Yvonne Grealish.
Yvonne Grealish is originally from, I believe she's from London, and she sounded exactly what you might expect.
From a London boxer.
A London pugilist. She was a hot ticket, as my mother would have said, of a woman of her age, I think. And we unfortunately lost Yvonne Grealish back in 2022. She was just 69. But she and her husband, Martin, more than 25 years ago, started a boxing club basically in their driveway in Neponset, the Grealish Boxing Club. It's had a couple of different homes in warehouses and kind of industrial parks around Fields Corner over the years. and is just, one of those hidden gems in the neighborhood. They've trained a couple of generations now of Dorchester boxers, girls and boys, men and women. And their daughter, Nicola, is now one of the trainers, along with her brother, and obviously her dad, Martin, who's still with us and very active and training new boxers. So this is one of those events that you walk into. This happened to be at Florian Hall 2 Sundays ago, and there's a ring in the middle of Florian Hall, and there's 6 and 7-year-olds with headgear on, of course, taking swings at each other and connecting, with a lot of adults around the room and kids watching.
Is it like a bloodlust vibe? Or?
It's a little bit of that. It's a few times a year Florian Hall hosts boxing events,
okay.
And if you ever have the opportunity, I recommend it. It's very unique, but this event was special 2 Sundays ago, where it was done as a memorial to Yvonne, to really raise money for the boxing club and to highlight the local talent. It's a sport that has a long history in our community, not just Dorchester, but South Boston and Roxbury and other communities around us. And it's alive and well, a lot of it thanks to the Grealish family. So Cassidy McNeely, who's on our staff here, did a great job, really captured it. And fun fact about Cassidy McNeely, her uncle is Peter McNeely, who boxing fans will very well know, fought Mike Tyson about 30 years ago now. Didn't do so well, Peter, if you're out there, but you gave it a great shot. So his niece, Cassidy McNeely, is now on the staff of the Reporter and loves covering sports, and particularly boxing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of other kind of, I think, Dorchester standards here, we've got Frederick Brand, who this is a much earlier person from the Dorchester area, but this is the 1890s we're looking at. This was in the yesteryear column of the Reporter. Right. And it turns out Frederick Brand was a felting tycoon.
Yeah, who knew? He's photographed his photo is in the Reporter this week with his horse named Dr. G in front of their carriage house.
The original Dorchester rapper, I believe.
Yeah, in front of their carriage house at 4 Melville Ave, which, if I'm not mistaken, that property just recently sold. That restored carriage house still exists and was just on the market.
It was a beautiful house.
It's a beautiful.
I was drooling over that for several weeks.
You could do a whole episode, and I'm guessing you're going to, on carriage houses of Dorchester. And, we've spent some time on that subject over the years. So this is Yesteryear Archive, which is a section every week in the Reporter that Earl Taylor, who you probably should have on this program sooner rather than later, the head of the Dorchester Historical Society, submits this column every week to us. And, I didn't know anything about this pelt tycoon, but now I do. And Melville Ave is probably one of the most beautiful streets in the city.
Definitely.
People, whether you live in Dorchester or not, if you're not familiar with Melville Ave, take a ride.
Just not on Halloween.
Halloween is a little tricky.
Yeah.
For good reason. They give out the big candy there. They got the big homes, they give out the big candy. That's how it works.
Well, I think that wraps it up for this week's articles. I just want to ask you one last question, Bill. What are you looking forward to for next week? Any sneak peeks?
Oh, wow. Yeah, we've got some stories coming. Cassidy is always on the hunt for good. She's going to be writing about Sportsman's Tennis Club and some new programming that's going on there. We'll have major coverage of today's events at the Field House. I think we're going to have some news about Kearney Hospital, which is always on our radar screen, but we're expecting some news from the working group that's been working on what's next for the Kearney. So stay tuned for more on that. And then, we're getting into the to late April, and pretty soon we'll be talking about things like Dorchester Day. And a big event that's coming up at the end of April is the 50th anniversary of what the Vietnamese community refers to as Black April, the fall of Saigon, and the end of the U.S. part of the Vietnam War. A lot of events coming up in the next couple of weeks to commemorate that. So next week's Reporter is going to be heavy with that kind of content.
That's great.
Yeah.
Any tips for folks who want to see more coverage of a certain topic? Any way they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. .news.com. You can find us on Blue Sky. We're no longer on that other platform. Facebook, Instagram. But always just reach out. News editor at .news.com. Tips, story ideas. I guess complaints too if you have them. But we also take praise here and there where we can get it. But we're always looking for story ideas, and this is what we do. A community newspaper, we depend on our readers to tell us what we should be looking for. So please let us know.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bill. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have Bill and Linda for a deeper dive into just what it's like to cover Dorchester.
Cool.
Back to the DotLife podcast, continuing the conversation that we started in the first segment with Bill Forry, but we are excited to be joined by Linda Dorcena Forry.
All right, happy to be here.
Who is also a co-publisher of the Dorchester Reporter. Linda, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm Linda Dorcena Forry, born and raised in Dorchester and Upham's Corner. First generation American. My parents came from Haiti, so I speak Haitian Creole fluently. Okay, sorry, that was a lot, but I'm married to Bill, and I'm happy to be co-publisher of the paper. We have 4 children together. We love this community. It's an amazing neighborhood.
Wonderful. And you live in Laurel Mills?
Yep, we live in Laurel Mills now, which is where Bill grew up, and I grew up in Upham's Corner. But we met really at Boston College. When we went to college, that's when we met. But we have roots at BC High. He went to BC High. My brother, my cousins went to BC High. I went to an all-girls school. We'd go to the dances, but we didn't meet until college. So yeah, so here we are now. But I was in government for 22 years, and then I went and worked in the private sector. And now, I wasn't connected to the paper, though Bill ran it. When I ran for office, they brought in an ombudsman. I'm just letting everybody know we were separate. There was a line, a demarcation line around the coverage and the work that I was doing as an elected. And now I'm just happy, to be able to be a co-publisher and to continue to do the work and really allow a great voice for people to be able to share.
That's great. And Bill, we talked a little bit about you in the first segment, but tell us more about the Reporter and what your folks did to get this up and running 40 years ago.
Yeah, it was 1983. My parents launched the Reporter from what is now our kitchen on Richmond Street in Dorchester and Lower Mills. And, that was just a kind of a leap of faith, kind of a jump into the abyss of they needed, frankly, my dad had been laid off from a job. He was interested in community journalism. He'd been a columnist for the Dorchester Argus-Citizen back in the day, and my mother was a writer too. So they launched a paper. It was a monthly, and then it went bi-weekly and eventually weekly. And here we are today, sort of with a 24-hour news operation online, and still a very robust weekly newspaper that gets into other neighborhoods as well as Dorchester, like Mattapan, obviously, the adjoining communities like South
Park,
Boston, Rosendale. We're seeing a lot of new readers in Roxbury, Jamaica Plain. So, we do have that Dorchester brand, and we've been doing that for a long time. But, we see ourselves as I would say, we have a citywide audience in some respects on some of the coverage we do, but our heart and soul, we're really rooted, like Linda said, in Dorchester, and that's kind of what we live, breathe, eat, and we'll get into the other part later.
And I have to say, and I'm going to say, Dorchester is the largest neighborhood in the city of Boston, right? Yep. Out of 22, I think there are neighborhoods. Yep. And we are the most diverse.
Absolutely.
So when you talk about the Latino community, whether it's Dominican, Puerto Rican, right? We have it, Vietnamese, Haitian, we have everyone. And I'm going to add, yes, we have the Dorchester Reporter, but when Bill came and worked for the family paper, he'd also started the Boston Haitian Reporter, right, which was really important. That was a print product it was a monthly paper, print product for 15 years, and now it's online. But also, your family has the Boston Irish Reporter, which is now the Boston...
The Irish is still
Irish
around.
magazine, they're around.
Yeah, obviously my roots are in Ireland, Linda's are in Haiti. So we kind of always sort of gravitated towards the communities that we knew best. But I mean, what we do with the Dorchester Project is multicultural.
Yes,
and,
it is.
We're really, always been focused on being inclusive, getting everyone's voices into this paper, because that's what this is about. Dorchester doesn't work as a community unless we're all sort of rowing in the same direction.
Yeah.
And everybody who's, come into this neighborhood has contributed mightily to what it is today, whether they're still here or not, frankly, like the folks who were here, long before us and created, what is the neighborhood we have today, and it's still evolving. So our philosophy on covering the community is really, cover the neighborhoods best, and the people who work for us also live here, are rooted here in many ways. So we've been very fortunate to build a team of people who share this passion, like you do, Erin.
You do.
And congratulations on launching this pod. It's an
Thanks.
amazing idea.
Yeah, I think the large hurdle of getting all of those diverse voices into the paper every week. You guys do such a great job of representing all those different communities. It's not an easy task.
It's not.
There's limited amount of space in that paper.
There is. This week we have 24 pages. Next week might be 20. We never know. But thank you. You have to be deliberate about that.
Yeah.
And we invest a lot of our limited resources in reporters and columnists, writers, photographers who really are like authentically committed to this work, because I can tell you they're not doing it for the money.
Yeah.
They're doing it because there's a reward beyond that for those of us who are in journalism and sort of media. And this is the layer of journalism that drew me in very early, and I got kind of hooked on that reward of covering the community that I'm from and seeing that it's sort of an immediate gratification, sometimes an immediate negative reaction, depending on the story, but
Depends.
it's never not a reaction.
Yeah.
People are really invested in this product and in the work that we're doing because they're invested in the neighborhood.
That's right. And even if they may not be happy with a story, we encourage letter to the editors, right? We encourage people to write in and to share their thoughts, which is
Feedback
really
is
important.
better than silence,
That's
right?
right. Let's just say it. Come on.
Yeah.
Just
get it
speak
out
up.
there.
Get it out. Get it out.
Well, I think, part of what I wanted to talk with you both about is the paper, but also just from a larger perspective. You've been so immersed in this neighborhood for so long. You probably know Dorchester as well as any couple in Dorchester. So I want to talk about, what do you like about covering, Bill, this neighborhood? What gets you up in the morning?
I think it's like seeing you can see how the needle has moved over the decades. And this is the kind of work that takes that long to see results in, unfortunately. It's a dynamic place. It's constantly changing and evolving, but some of the big things, like growing up here in the 1980s, really, when we were, young people, kids, I gotta say, it was kind of a depressed place. It was kind of a,
Rough,
it was
yeah.
a lot more segregated. It was a lot more depressed economically. There was a lot more crime, frankly, in like the late 80s, early 90s. It just was kind of a, I don't know, it was a depressed time in the city of Boston as a whole. And in Dorchester in particular, it just felt like there wasn't a lot of opportunity, and there wasn't a lot of people sharing the way they do now. Some of the restaurants, the new housing, the parks, the public, even little
Public
things
spaces,
it's not a little thing, but when you think about it, we didn't have access to the Neponset River back then. It was walled
Really?
off.
Yeah.
It was fenced off.
It was
You
fenced.
couldn't walk on those were train tracks. You were not going to be safe doing that. There was barbed wire, broken glass, graffiti. We still have
It's
elements
not
of
perfect today.
No, it's not
but,
perfect.
yeah.
There's still work
But
that
that
needs
was
to be
just
done. No
like-
doubt about it.
the general feel, to me at least. And I grew up in that Lower Mills, border Mattapan area, and Linda grew up in Upham's Corner.
Upham's
so.
Corner.
And that is a good example. We didn't meet until we went to BC.
Yeah.
That.
It's a lot of space, really.
But that's how it was, I think,
Yeah.
too, back then. Now there's a lot more common ground. There's a lot more interaction, and kids from Lower Mills or Savin Hill or Grove Hall,
Are
Fields Corner
connecting.
are likely to know each other.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
would say that, there's institutions too, like the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester, where you have young people coming from all these communities and meeting there, right? And they're working on art, they're doing basketball, they're working there. They're in the summer camp as counselors, and it's really incredible, the connections that's happening around our neighborhoods, in particular Dorchester. It's significant, which is wonderful to see.
So over the decades, a lot of things have changed. What do you miss about maybe what you had back in the 80s or 90s that is kind of gone today, or maybe not as prominent?
I know what I think
Go
I
ahead.
miss, and I see it in the kids, this everybody, and it's us too, everyone's glued to their phone or glued to the electronics. And I think what used to be more common was just being out on the streets running around and being on your bicycle and going to the park. And you know, the parks might have been a little bit not as nice and they're a little bit more dangerous now.
I mean,
but,
they weren't nice.
You know, kids went out and they came back when it got dark, and you know, you weren't programmed 24/7 or like tied to an electronic. So that's a big change just culturally everywhere. But in the city environment, like there just used to be a lot more, I guess, freedom of moving around that way. I don't know. That's from a 50-something-year-old perspective now, but that's what I see.
Go 50, man. We got to own it.
That's right.
We love our age.
Anything you miss, Linda?
I mean, I would say, you know, interesting. The electronics, that's a good point, right? Like, I mean, our kids, we see everyone's on their phone. But I just really enjoyed growing up in Dorchester, like, you know, and I don't think there's what I miss though, and kind of going back to, you know, growing up, there was a lot of violence, right? In terms of, parts of Dorchester, kids could go to the playground and do all that stuff and get on their bike, but other sections you couldn't, right? Because there was street violence that were happening. There was, you know, people are coming, right? So you got to be in your house. And so, you know, I think we've come a long way, but there's still so much more work that has to be done in terms of how do we help really look at the holistic picture around children, around families, and really giving the support that's needed. But no doubt the parks are amazing, right? How do we get more activities going, I would say, to make people feel connected overall?
You in particular, Linda, have a very unique perspective on Dorchester because you represented it in government. How did that shift your view of the neighborhood? And you had other territories, other geos in your constituency. Yeah. Was Dorchester always special?
Always special, right? I mean, and when I transitioned out of elected office, it's so funny. I live in Dorchester, and people are like, oh my God, where are you moving? Are you moving away? And I'm like, what? I have my home here. Where am I going? What do you mean? I'm here. I'm in Dorchester. I'm not leaving. Maybe we'll travel with the kids, but we're here. But I would say that, I have a different perspective because, you know, I grew up, like I said, in Upham's Corner in a multi-generational household, actually, with my parents, my grandparents, aunt and uncles. When they immigrated from Haiti, they lived with us, right? So we had a lot of people living in the house, which was wonderful. But it's kind of like that whole American story, right? When you come here and you're able to settle roots, how do you get your other relatives to come? So that's how I grew up. But then when I was elected in the 12th Suffolk District as a state rep, I represented Dorchester, not all of Dorchester, a part of Dorchester into Lower Mills, Mattapan, a little bit of Hyde Park, and 2 precincts in Milton. So I had a city suburban district, right? And Milton right there next to Lower Mills, right there in terms of the border. And it was really fascinating, right? Because it was about listening, meeting people where they were, going to people's homes, knocking on doors, asking for their vote, right? Talking about a new partnership for this community. Whether you live in Milton or Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, there were issues that everyone's dealing with, right? Whether it's housing affordability, cost of medicine for seniors, and it was really kind of helping to connect the dots. And then when I ran for Senate, you know, it was a larger district, so Mattapan was no longer in it. So now I had all of Dorchester, right? Not just where I lived in Lower Mills, but now I had Upham's Corner, and then I had South Boston, and I had Mattapan, and then I had Hyde Park, right? And so it was a bigger district, but quite amazing because, again, it's meeting people where they are, listening to their concerns, but really, how do we bring the resources into our communities and to say this is a priority, and we're going to get the money to get it done. So when Bill talks about the Neponset Trail, which is amazing, but there was a gap. I mean, it stopped. It stopped from Mattapan into from Lower Mills and River Street through Milton. There was a big gap. It did not go down to Mattapan Square. And, you know, it was a fight. And we was able to get money in the economic bond bill to say we're going to do the missing link, the missing link of this trail. And then, but it took a lot of work because it was about bringing Mattapan residents, Dorchester residents, Milton residents together. And it was a fight because some folks in Milton and loved Milton representing it, but it was like, well, wait a minute, why are you putting it through our neighborhoods? Like, what do you mean you're going to put it on this side? Well, yeah, because that's the only side it could be on, right? Like, we're going to finish this trail because it has to get done. And it was government Governor Patrick under his leadership, who saw the vision too, because he lived in Milton, and then Governor Baker, and we got it done, which was amazing.
And took advantage of that beautiful natural resource.
Of course,
that
it's
is
a gem.
Neponset River.
It's
yeah.
a beautiful gem,
Yeah.
and now it's being connected
Yeah.
all over the place, like with Representative Dan Hunt and the trail, which is
Right. There's
it's
going to be
awesome.
a new element, a new link on that trail opening any week now
Yeah.
that terminates here at Marcy Boulevard. And people may have noticed that
You see it
new
being
bridge that's
built.
there around the
Yes.
gas tank. You know, so when you talk about that, like that long process of seeing the needle move, you know, it's like a baton race
It is.
at the
It's a
legislature
baton.
because Linda did her part when she was there and got that link
Yeah.
in Mattapan, Milton, and the Harvest Bridge. That's
Yeah.
that amazing bridge over
Oh,
the
it's
Neponset.
beautiful.
If you haven't been, check it out. Like that was on her watch, and she
Yeah.
made that happen. Dan Hunt is getting it done now
Yeah.
with Senator Collins and
Yeah.
others who, you know, getting that link done around the gas tank, which it's only like it's less than a mile connection, but it's a critical one.
It
and
is.
It's been like 10 years in the making.
Wow.
So when we think about like how the neighborhood's changed and evolved, it takes that sort of decades long approach
It does.
to get it done. And, you know, credit to you, Linda, and your colleagues for
And
that.
also my predecessor, I mean, Speaker
Yeah.
Tom Finneran,
Yep.
right, in terms of the Pope John Paul Park. I mean, that was the beginning
Yeah.
of it
Marty
all.
Walsh,
Marty
big
Walsh.
part of that.
Marty Walsh, big part of it, because
Yeah.
if you come off the exit of 11B on Granite Avenue, there was never a light. There was never a light for people to cross. And then I remember getting elected as a freshman state rep, and I went to Marty, who was in it, right? He was already elected, has been there for a while. And I said, Marty, I need the light. I need you to help me. How do I get the light? We need a crossing light. People are going to die. I
Yeah.
mean, seriously,
Yeah.
there's no way. And then he was like, okay, Linda, I'm going to get it done for you. So he helped me, you know, working with the budget,
Yeah.
working with Ways and Means and the speaker at that time, you know, to get the money to get the light.
But
so
I
people
think
can cross.
your perspective is so spot on. You can't just look at, and people get frustrated with the slowness of progress.
Yeah.
But when you look at it over a longer time span, so much has changed and
So
been
much.
accomplished. And really, we
Absolutely.
need to take time to appreciate what we have
Absolutely.
been able to do.
Agree.
Were you at all, Linda, surprised at the enthusiasm or the investment people had in Dorchester when you were in office? Were you surprised at their excitement or their tenacity about issues, or were you expecting people to be that involved?
I mean, I have to say, I was expecting people to be involved, right? I mean, so, you know, community meetings is a real thing, right? The civic associations are real. And in my district, when I was a state rep, there was at least 20 community meetings, evening meetings happening. In the Senate district, there was like 50.
Wow.
Right? In terms of people come out to voice their opinions, to listen to the issues that are happening. So people are engaged, right? But the piece that happens is it does take, you know, it's kind of slow, right?
Yeah.
Right, in terms of progress and getting money in the budget or getting development done when you think of permitting and getting all that piece. But I think people have always been involved, but it's how do you help them channel that,
Yeah.
right? And making them feel comfortable. Like, no, if you come out and share, you know, your ideas are going to be heard. Now, you know what? It may not get done. Like, right? We
Or
may
not-
want to
not
go
the way
this
you
way.
want it, right?
That's right. We
Right.
may want to go this way, and you want to go to the left of it. That's okay. We want to hear it.
Yeah.
But in the end, we're going to compromise and get something done, right? So everyone can't get their own way.
And you're not going to get it at all if you don't vocalize
That's
what
right.
you want.
That's
So
right.
Be a
You
part
gotta
of the
you got to be
system.
part of it.
Dorchester's never had a problem being
No.
shy
Being vocal.
about what they want.
Always vocal.
And, you know, the best examples of that have been like things like the Red Line and getting the stations. And we're going back in the 90s now,
Oh,
but
you're
like
going back.
there were coalitions. This is really pre-internet, definitely pre-social media.
That's right.
Of people organizing. And we've seen it now in the Fairmount line too.
That's right.
So things that when people join forces, and that's part of the principle behind the reporter's idea, is when, you know, we are the biggest part of the city.
Yeah.
If we marshal our voices behind a cause, then we can get pretty much anything done.
Agreed.
If we divide ourselves and balkanize ourselves
By
by
little
these little
neighborhoods.
villages
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
time,
Yep.
or parishes, or,
Yeah.
not that there's anything wrong with that local identity, but we have to be able to coalesce behind things that are important to all of us.
Yeah.
So the reporter's whole concept is, you know, marshaling that into one place and keeping everybody informed. That's why I think I mentioned in the earlier segment, we don't put a paywall on our content
No, we
because
don't, which is
our
good.
principle is everybody in the city should have access to the same information.
Absolutely.
And be able to arrive at, they may arrive at different conclusions, but they shouldn't have different information or no information.
Based on their means or
That's
yeah,
right.
Exactly.
absolutely.
So
Right.
we'll never put a paywall
Yeah.
on that. There's a charge to the paper to get the print because it costs money for us to move it around.
Of course.
But we'll never put a paywall on the digital side because everybody who lives in, we have 150,000 people in our readership area just for Dorchester and Mattapan. All of them
I
should be
know.
able to access that.
Yeah, agreed. I want to pivot a little bit and talk more about your family. You mentioned you have 4 kids, I think 2 boys, 2 girls. Is that
Yeah,
right?
2 boys, 2 girls.
You raised them in Dorchester.
Yeah.
I hear a lot from my friends with kids that particularly the school system navigation can be a little tricky.
Yeah, it can be.
Yeah.
What's your experience
Absolutely.
been? How did you guys decide what schools to send your kids to, and what was that process like in a nutshell?
In a nutshell. Okay, really quick. I know. Good job, Erin. He's like, gosh, just elected a person. Just keeps on talking. Okay, I'm going to be quick. I'm going to, we have John, who's now 21. He's a junior at Boston College. Connor is 18. He's graduating from BC High. Madeline is 14 in 9th grade at the Windsor School, and Nora is 12 in 7th grade at our local Catholic school. So we're Catholic. We're
Okay.
born and raised Catholic. And so our kids, when they were going, getting ready to go to school, we went into, their first place they went was in the Boys and Girls Club of Dorchester, their early education program, right? It was
Terrific
amazing,
program.
terrific program. We kept our kids home. My parents were active in the childcare of my children. So when I was elected, I only had John Patrick, who was 14 months old, as a state rep for 8 years. I had 3 additional children, right? So I was pregnant during my state house days, but my parents took care of my children, right? So my kids were there for daycare. When they turned 12, a year old, when they were 12 months old, we put them into the Boys and Girls Club early education program. And so they were there for toddler 1, toddler 2, pre-K, K1, and it was amazing, right? And then from there, we went into Catholic schools. And so
We did look at BPS.
We
by
did
the way.
look at
and I mean,
BPS.
I think
True.
a lot of folks are, especially, can get frustrated with the assignment process, which happened to us at that point. I think there's been improvements made, but for us, we both grew up going to Catholic grammar
schools,
school, so
yeah.
we were sort of culturally tuned into that.
Yeah.
But I also think it's part of the story of the city. It's BPS, the charters, and the Catholic schools are all part of the ecosystem
It
here.
is.
And they're all, they all play a very important role. For us, we were already kind of tuned into that system, the Catholic school system, and we were fortunate to find a really good home there with the what used to be called St. Anne's, but it's now St. John Paul II Catholic Neponset. So all 4 of our kids went there for parts of their grammar school experience, and then
They
moved on. Our daughter Nora will graduate,
Yeah.
God willing, from St. John Paul II Neponset. I just say that because
Next year.
I know as people are grappling with this idea, and we have friends at that age group, and that their kids are just entering kindergarten, BPS is an option. So
and
are
they're
Catholic
in BPS
schools.
and they love it. Yeah, everything is an option. Correct.
Yeah, so I think that there's obviously an obstacle there for a lot of families on the income side of things. Not everybody's on the same level there.
Of course.
And so there's legit frustration with the assignment process, and especially at the higher grade levels, going into 6th grade
Right.
and 8th grade. There's a lot of controversy about that. For us, we, once our first son kind of went into that Neponset school, we felt really comfortable there. And so all 4 kids went through that program.
Yeah, and followed him through. But there's a lot of work that has to be done, right?
Yeah.
In terms of really giving parents the support, to figure out what schools that their children should go into, whether it is Catholic or parochial schools or charter schools, which to me are public schools, right? And our regular BPS schools. I mean, we have to double down and put the effort in. To make a difference, right? Because not every family is going to have the means to put their kids in parochial school or private school,
Right.
Independent private schools. And so how do we make sure that, the schools that we currently have, which are doing good, right? But they can be great,
Yeah.
right? And really focus on that.
Yeah, there's a whole episode of schools coming up, I think, in the near future. Before we move away from this topic, though, you talked a little bit about your Catholic school background informing the way you chose your children's schools, but just generally, what about your childhood growing up in Dorchester kind of did you use to raise your kids? Was there anything you took from your experiences as children in this area?
Yeah, I mean, I would say in raising our children, I think we have it, because it is, I'm going to say for myself, right? Like my faith is a big, strong a part of who I am too, right?
Yeah.
And my parents, and I saw what my parents did in terms of coming here and was able to buy a house, right? But they didn't even just buy it like that. It was like there was a big migration of people leaving the community, right, in terms of white families. And, you know, a gentleman who was going to leave saw my parents going back and forth to the bus to go to work, and my mom's pregnant. And one day he stops them and says, listen, I'm going to sell I'm going to leave. But I see you guys. Mind you, they don't speak English, right? So, like, I mean, so this is the communication that's happening. Just human connection, because you may not speak the language with people, but, you know, you can connect with people. And you know, they stopped my parents and said, you know, I see you going back and forth. You know, I'm leaving the community. I want to sell you my 2-family Victorian house.
Wow.
Right? Amazing. Yeah,
This is like 70
this is
or something?
1970.
Wow.
Right? 1970, this gentleman was like, you know, I see you guys. You just came here, and I want to make this happen. And my parents are like, okay, like what? I got no money. Like, what are you talking about? And then the gentleman was amazing because he basically sold it to them for $5,000. And my parents gave them a couple hundred. They pulled together from family, whatever. And basically, they were paying a mortgage to this guy until they paid off the $5,000. You know what I mean? And it was really amazing. So I grew up with a household where it was an open household, where they invited people in, right? It was relatives at first, then it wasn't relatives. Then it was just Haitian people coming that they were like, let's let them stay here for free so they could get acclimated to this new culture called America, right? We got work to do now, but, you know, and really learn everything and to be able to move on and get your own place. So in our children, I would say my faith, my parents' faith, putting us in that was, how do you help people, right? How do you treat people the way you want to be treated? How do you speak to people the way you want to be spoken to? And I think for our kids, as they went off to school, you know, that's the thing we would always say to them is like, listen, when you get to school, you know, yes, we need you to do well. I mean, we got to get the grades because, you know, that's important. But also, you know, the piece I'm going to say is that if you see a kid that's sitting by themselves at the lunch table, you need to go talk to them, right? If you see someone being picked on, I need you to say, don't pick on them, right? Or to become their friends. And so, you know, as we fast forward, I mean, it's great to see that, right? To see your kids being able to just be thoughtful and kind, right? And to think of other people, I think is really important.
We got tons of kids like that in this neighborhood.
Yeah, there's
and
amazing
and
kids.
families that have that same ethos. I'd say the other element is, I don't want to be a broken record, but the Boys and Girls Clubs.
Absolutely.
Okay, we both went through the MAR Club, what used to be called the MAR Club, now we call it Boys and Girls Clubs of Dorchester. It's the glue that keeps
amazing.
This neighborhood together at that age group. And all of our kids went through their early childhood ed, summer programming. They're there probably right now as we speak. I mean,
they work there, the boys.
Some of them, a couple of them have worked there. So, and I'm talking about thousands of kids every year are getting served by this place and connecting and becoming, you know, they have that same ethos, like about service and kindness and helping families that might be struggling, even if your family happens to be struggling too, by the way. Like, it's kind of a, like, we're all in this together.
They take a holistic approach. Absolutely.
So that's really helped guide not only our experience, but so many people, like friends and family who've come up behind us with kids. Like,
absolutely,
we send them all that direction because it's never gone wrong.
Are you guys ready for the important stuff?
Okay.
Yeah. This is the rapid fire round. There's no thinking involved. It's just the first thing that comes into your head. This is your recommendations
This could be trouble.
throughout the neighborhood.
Geez.
I'm not asking you to play any favorites. It's just what pops into your mind. So
and we can't say the same thing over and
Okay,
over
we
again.
won't.
Right.
Though we go.
Right.
We kind of go together to these places, but okay.
all right.
Okay.
First one.
You go first.
Favorite
Brittany.
upscale restaurant.
Venetia's.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Venezia on the upscale. Yeah.
So amazing. Like, it's great. Okay.
Beautiful
All right.
views too.
Beautiful
Can't beat
views.
the
Right on the
water,
water.
right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Pub dinner.
Tavolo. I don't know if that counts as a
You just
pub.
took Linda's
That's
answer.
not. I know he did.
Okay, well, I'm going to
Because
answer
we spoke
Tavolo
earlier.
a couple of times, so you go ahead with yours.
But Tavolo's not really a pub, though. Come on.
They have a bar.
They do have a bar,
have
but
a
I would
bar.
say a pub would be like a pub. Like, I mean, there are newer pubs too that just popped up. Like McGonagall's just popped up. That's a pub.
It sure is.
I
That's
mean,
a pub.
the Banshee's a pub.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I think we're just supposed to give one answer, though.
Oh, one answer. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'd
There's
run
no
it all
rules,
down, guys.
really. Drinks only pub, no food. Where do you go for a nightcap? Or
No,
Guinness?
we do food too. We do like
Yeah, we don't go just to drink anymore. Like, I think that's off
we're
the table
grown,
for me
man.
at this
Aaron,
point.
we're grown.
I mean, I guess if I'm going to rewind back like 20 years ago, if I was going to do that, it would probably be the Banshee.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, so I wasn't really a drinker like that. I'm
Okay.
just saying. And
Okay.
so I mean, just for a nightcap?
I'm gonna.
Okay,
just,
maybe I'll say, okay, you know what? For a nightcap, I'll say Yellow Door in Lower Mills.
that's a good
good.
choice.
That is a
That's
good
a good
choice.
one.
Yeah, that's a
All
good one.
right. Okay.
Okay, how about Vietnamese food?
I got to go with the ballet.
Ballet.
The banh mi at ballet is like obviously
so
world
good.
class, and it's the best in Boston. So
I'm with Bill.
Okay.
It's so good. Yeah.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
What about coffee shop?
Sweet Life.
Sweet Life's more of a restaurant.
More
but
of a restaurant, breakfast,
just a pure coffee?
Pure coffee. Then Flat Black. Flat Black is a coffee
in Lower
joint.
Mills, we got to stick
In
with
Lower
the
Mills,
locals.
you know,
Yeah.
Flat Black right there. Another one is, no. Flat Black, yes. But also in Ashmont.
Ripple.
And the Caruth. Ripple.
Yeah.
Thank you. Ripple
Ripple's
is
a good one.
amazing. And the setup.
Honeycomb is maybe
Okay.
my sneaky one from
Okay.
Savin Hillside. Yeah.
Okay, Honeycomb. Gosh.
And they carry the reporter. Thank you.
Okay. Honeycomb is good too. Okay. So there's a lot of places.
What about specialty store?
Well, I like to call it the 3-decker candle company, but it's the triple-decker candle
Yes.
company
Yeah.
in
I
Lower
actually
Mills.
covered that when I was writing for you.
That's right.
Yes.
Great
Yeah.
job, by the
Yeah.
way.
Good job.
She's
Sharon.
really blown up since that story. I think it was.
They do a
I
terrific
think it
job
was
with
too.
the Dorchester merch.
They do.
College Hype is an old school fave, but like right now, triple decker candle. I think they're really doing a nice job.
Yeah.
And they're in Lower Mills, so we can walk there.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have
I
one,
think-
Linda?
Yeah, I was thinking of the one back to the Caruth building.
Local hand.
Local hand. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, Erin.
Also a good one.
Also a great one. Appreciate it.
This is kind of a tricky one. What type of establishment do you think is most lacking in Dorchester? What do we not have enough of?
We don't have a sushi place.
I agree.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
my
we
100%.
don't have a sushi
Yes.
place. I mean, we used
Well,
to.
there is, yeah.
The Van Shabu on
Van Shabu
on
was
Dorchester
amazing.
Ave, but they're no longer there. So I think sushi's kind of like, I don't know. What do y'all think?
100%. I
Right.
get very frustrated trying to order
Sushi would be great.
Yeah.
There's a great one in Quincy, though we're talking about Dorchester, but yes, that
Yes.
we need sushi.
Okay, I think that resolved. Somebody out there got to get us some
Do it.
sushi.
Though there is a sushi place, the Revolving Sushi in South Bay Mall.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, there is one
There
there.
is. I
There
don't know
is
what-
one there.
I don't think that's the name of it.
No,
but
I know. That's
revolving
horrible.
sushi
It's
place. I can't remember.
they have a conveyor belt that shares the sushi, and you just got to pick which one
They
you
had
want.
that in Seaport for a bit. The Yo Sushi.
yeah. So they have it there, in,
Okay.
and,
and our
so
kids
there's
like the
one.
ramen place. Are we gonna? Is South Bay? I mean, it is
is
Dorchester,
Dorchester.
but I always just kind of like put that off to the side.
Yeah,
Like, I
but
thought we were
South Bay
talking,
has
like,
a lot of
Dot
great
Life.
stuff too. We're
Washington
talking about
Street.
yeah.
By the way, we're gonna have a Haitian restaurant opening very soon in Common Square, like Gourmet Creole, which
Oh,
that's
yes.
going to be
Yeah.
on my list of
Yeah.
places to check out.
That's going to be great.
very
They have a
soon.
truck, right? The
Yes.
Gourmet Creole
food
truck.
truck. So that's something we've been missing is a sit down Haitian restaurant where it's kind of like you would go for a date night kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Haitian cuisine, if somebody can figure that out, it'll really do very
Yeah.
well in this market.
There's
Agreed.
one in 212.
212 is
on
great,
River
but
Street.
they don't have
It's in Mattapan,
they don't
but
have a beer and wine or alcohol
They don't have beer
license.
and wine.
Okay.
And it's in Mattapan, but technically,
Mattapan.
that is a very good spot.
Yeah.
Last
212 's good.
question. Your favorite annual event / festival?
Well, I'm going to say Dorch Fest is pretty nice, Erin. I know you were part of that, and
I was
Rachel
fishing for
creating
that.
it. Dorch Fest is amazing, but we can't give up. Come on.
Dot day.
That day.
Yeah, that's fair.
Dorchester
That's
Day.
fair.
I mean, walk
used-
that parade forever.
I'll be honest, like it used to be Memorial Day.
Yeah,
for
Memorial
me, but
Day
they
was
don't
great.
do the parade the way they used to. Like there used to be a parade that would go by my house. Our
house now.
It's our house now, but it was
Yeah.
my house
Yeah,
back
it
in
was his
1980s.
house
Okay,
back then.
and there was like all these veterans, and a marching band, and they'd go
Yeah.
by my house, and it was around my birthday, so I always thought it was for me.
Of course.
But then I appreciated what it really was for, and
Which is our
it was a beautiful
veterans,
ceremony
yes.
at Cedar Grove, and we're missing that. So
We
I
need
hope
to help bring that back.
together the
gotta
community,
talk.
including all of us, can maybe get that restored. But right now, it's Dorchester Day,
Yeah.
and
So
Dorchfest is like a
Which is
The
right
pre-
there.
the
It's
precursor.
The precursor.
Yeah,
It's the
exactly.
day before
It's the
anyway,
pregame.
right? It's
Dorchester
a
weekend.
3-day weekend. Yeah.
So what we've learned is we need someone to bring back Memorial Day Parade and a sushi restaurant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what a combo!
Perfect.
If you could
Love
like
it.
do a collab somehow with that, it'd be ideal.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. But
Bill and Linda, thank you so much. This has been great. Really appreciate
Thank
your
you,
time.
Erin.
Congratulations!
I know. This is
a
wonderful.
great idea.
It
Thank
is.
you. When we come back, we'll have a Tiny Dot concert featuring local artist Hakim. Welcome to the Tiny Dot concert series. We're here today with Hakim, a local artist from the Dorchester Roxbury area. Welcome to the pod, Hakim.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me a little bit about your artist journey. You've been performing for how many years now?
11 years has been a career.
Nice. And how did you get into music?
I started singing when I was a child. It's kind of a family thing. I put it down for sports mostly through high school, and it found its way back to me at 17. I picked it up. I never let it go.
And what sports did you play?
My first sport was wrestling, and then I did football and track.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's great. You are an R&B artist.
absolutely.
I first discovered you, I think, 4 years ago now, during the initial inaugural Dorchfest
Yes.
artist search. Was so happy that you applied, and we were able to have you every year since then. But your voice is incredible, and I think R&B as a genre, you think back to, 15, 20 years ago in the heyday of like Casey and JoJo and Chris Brown, and even at the tail end of Boyz II Men, it's not really as big of a genre anymore, and I feel like I don't understand why. I think it's such a beautiful expression of music. Can you talk about how you got into R&B?
Again, it being a family thing, mostly my family singing ballads, very like kind of the sultry R&B type fellas, and me just falling in love with the art, the music, its expression. Because I can remember as a child listening to certain songs and almost brought to the point of tears because I understood the concept so young, but I was not troubled, but kind of startled that I could feel things that deeply in music, and that's how I knew I loved it. So the passion for the genre comes from the reality in which they're speaking in these stories that they're telling, and I in turn became a storyteller through my own experiences. And I think the state of R&B today, there's always singers, there's always R&B. It's just drowned out now for the more popular genre, which is kind of like the rap or whatever, which is fine. I don't want to ever, put down any genre, but R&B definitely needs its respect back. I see it on the rise, coming back again with these new artists, and I'm excited to see the transformation of the genre while still upkeeping its originality.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Can you talk about what you're doing today? Like what's new with Hakim? What's coming out? What are you most proud of, and where can people find you?
Well, this past Sunday, I just did a Trap Burlesque Part 2. Part 3 will be coming soon. But that's been an annual show I've been a part of as well. A huge event. Amazing cast, amazing crew, amazing artists, amazing dancers. But obviously, I will be at Dorchfest this year. I'll be there every year as long as I can. I just released a single also Sunday called Invited on all platforms. But right now, I'm really working on just getting the shows so I can have more of the physical exposure, because nowadays everything's about numbers and followers, and all those numbers don't mean that you have fans or people that like you, and then even when your music is nice in the studio and on the radio, do people want to come see you? So I'm more focusing on having that old school one-on-one connection with the crowd.
That is evident when you perform, because you definitely make a connection to people in the audience. You come out into the crowd sometimes and sing, and it's really a powerful experience. So very excited to have you back at Dorchfest this year. Not sure yet where we're going to have you. So, make sure that you keep checking the dorchfest.com website to find out more. But can we hear you do some performing?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One of these days, and it won't be long, you're gonna look for me and I'll be gone. Yeah, I believe it. Said I believe right now. Well, I believe to my soul. Try to make a fool out of me. Well, you're going around here with your head so hard. I think I'm gonna have to use my word. Yeah, I believe it. Said I believe right now. Well, I believe to my soul. Try to make a fool out of me. Last night you were dreaming and I heard you say, oh, Johnny, when you know my name's Hakim, that's why I believe it. Said I believe right now. Well, I believe to my soul. Try to make a fool out of me. Know that you like it, baby. Feel so excited. I said I know that you like it, still trying to fight it. Feel so excited when we be scratching and biting. We'll take our time if we're still undecided. But there's a meeting in my bedroom and you're always invited. Don't think too much about it, I'll take it nice and slow. Don't need to scream and shout, just wanna hear you moan. I'd rather you get yours, that's just the way it goes. Don't take it personal, just wanna take it slow. Why front on me when every evening you pull up on me? You ain't ever treated me like your homie. You like what I got on me, and no matter who I fit up, it's on me. Cause I know you're jaded, I can be careful. You know you love it here and you'll always be cared for. So won't you come to my room and I'ma show you love, I'll show you love. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Scratching and biting, we'll take our time, we're still undecided. But there's a meeting in my bedroom and you're always invited. Don't think too much about it, I'll take it nice and slow. No need to scream and shout, just wanna hear you moan. I'd rather you get yours, that's just the way it goes. Don't take it personal, just wanna take it slow. See windows up, she won't feel my touch. Take my time, don't rush, don't want nobody else. I'm gon' work her out, she gon' lose her breath. Ain't no doubt about it, this the best she ever felt. light shining on you. And baby, I'm trembling inside. Left the woman that I barely knew. I must have been out of my mind. Oh, I'll never hurt you again, girl. I know you deserve a better man. Hey, I was a fool to ever let you down. So why would you stay? Woman, I beg your forgiveness, and I'll do whatever it takes. May the Lord be my witness. Honey, I never meant to treat you this way. Sugar, your heart has been broken, but I can still see true love shine in your eyes. And every word has been spoken. Woman, I love you for the rest of my life. Oh, I'll never hurt you again, girl. I know you deserve a better man. Hey, I was a fool to ever let you down. So why would you stay?
Kim, why would you stay?